Welcome to the Gravity Well podcast with me, Jenny Yeremy. I host the Gravity Well to celebrate and share the stories of people looking to empower others with the knowledge and skills required to reestablish stability in our communities. My mission is to work through heavy issues in conversation and process in order to lighten the load. I acknowledge that I live on the traditional territories of Treaty 7 and Métis Districts 5 and 6. The treaties and self-governance agreements established by Indigenous peoples were created to honor the laws of the land, maintain balance with nature, and give back to uphold reciprocal relationships. This knowledge and intention are what guide the Gravity Well conversations. I ask for genuine dialogue, real hearts, and openness to different perspectives. This is your invitation to find common ground with me. Positions taken by participants, either individually or collectively, do not necessarily represent those of the Gravity Well. This podcast is dedicated to the natural world, our children, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, and all future generations. The Gravity Well is on YouTube and streaming wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what you see and hear, remember to like and subscribe. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me. I am Jenny Yeremy. I am broadcasting from Calgary, Alberta. I'm a geophysicist turned public activist, here to work with the people who are working hard to help regain stability in our communities and in our ecosystem. Today, I'm super excited to share with you the conversation I had with Zachary Weeks. He's a disability advocate in Edmonton. He's done some tremendous work over the last couple of years, which you'll hear all about. But first, I'm going to give you a few updates. So please remember to like and subscribe to the Gravity Well. Your doing so helps amplify the voices and issues that are brought forward by the folks that help me share the updates in Alberta with you. Mark your calendars if you live in Calgary-Bow. Markham Hislop is coming to town this month. So on April 24th, he will join me. We will be at the Montgomery Community Association from 6 to 8 p.m. We'll be doing a live dual podcast about energy, the renewable energy transition, as well as water restoration in Alberta. The event will be on Eventbrite, so please check it out. Get your tickets there, please. If you're a member of the Recall Nicolaides team, please reach out to me directly. Your presence is wanted. And abresistance.ca has offered a gift for you as well. So please reach out to me. Make sure that you get some appreciation from me and AB Resistance for all the work you did. I just met with a handful of people from the recall petitions. Please, if you know anybody who is heavily involved in a recall campaign, reach out to them, give them an extra word of gratitude. It was a tremendous effort for myself and for others, and so I'm sure they would really like some words of support these days. Big job. I had the privilege of meeting Thomas Lukasik for the Forever Canadian petition yesterday. He was in Calgary. We discussed the second phase that's starting there, which is really important in light of the supposed hurdle being met for the separatist petition. So keeping in mind that it is very likely that there is a ruling against the petition coming up this coming week. Not surprising, as Thomas said, that this hurdle announcement has been made in advance of that potential outcome. So please go to forever-canadian.ca to join the phase 2 effort. So that will be an effort to help educate and get people out to vote on this referendum that will be happening, it sounds like, on October 19th, despite our not asking for it. Reminding you that the petition for the separatist movement, it was only 5% of the voting population in Alberta. The Forever Canadian campaign needed 10%. They well exceeded that. Yet that petition has been shelved and that question has been ignored by the UCP so far, our Alberta government. They could be doing something about this question right now. They could just be having a vote in cabinet and deciding the future. If they all are truly wanting to remain in Canada, it would be easy to put this to rest. So please get involved in that campaign. Really important that people that are apathetic understand that this problem is not going away. Again, I've said it publicly. To me, this is all about reneging on the cleanup obligations in this province. Alberta has a over $260 billion cleanup problem.
that the industry, if they succeed in separating from Canada, can walk away from. So, keeping in mind that the US does not have remediation laws, they would immediately take, call it 150 million, if not 200 million or billion, excuse me, off the table for them. And remembering that they created the policy that means that the polluter is supposed to pay with the orphan fund. So this would undermine the orphan fund and a potential for Albertans to not be holding the bag for the exorbitant costs of cleanup. And that will be a necessity in this province, regardless of what happens with the oil and gas industry. To that end, the Coalition for Responsible Energy has been working hard. We've got 3 town halls coming up. So I will be in Provost on Wednesday, April 22nd. We will be at the Provost Recreation and Cultural Center. Doors will open at 6 p.m. Our team will be in Airdrie on Wednesday, April 29th at Inspire Airdrie from 7 to 8:30 p.m. and in Calgary at the Bowness Senior Centers on Saturday, May 9th from 2 to 3:30 p.m. The Common Purpose Collective Action Public Interest Alberta event, the conference, it will be held on May 8th and 9th in Edmonton. They want more folks from Calgary. I will be there. I know others that will be there from Calgary. Please go to Common Purpose Collective Action on Public Interest Alberta's website to join. Should be a tremendous 2-day event of talking about how we can improve democracy in Alberta and get the outcomes that we need. Also, mark your calendar for May 29th, Alberta Day of Action. The goal is to have 1 million Albertans on the streets. I'll be talking with a representative from Alberta Federation of Labor soon to discuss that and let you know more about it. So without further ado, let me share my conversation that I had with Zachary Weeks. So it's a really compelling conversation. Zachary is quite the spokesperson. I am looking forward to whatever future opportunity I have to speak or work with Zachary again. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for all that you do. I will be in the background here if you have any questions while I run this. Happy to answer them for you. Remember, again, as I said, to like and subscribe to the Gravity Well. Make sure that you amplify the voices of those who, like Zachary, take their time to share their efforts with me. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. Take care for now. So I have Zachary Weeks with me today. Zachary was born and raised in Edmonton. He's been a spokesperson on disability issues since he was young. He has consulted on a variety of building developments, including the Glen Roses Bill Black Auditorium, the Walter Dale Theatre, and Rogers Place. Zachary is a humbled voice for the voiceless and considers this to be one of the most significant honors of his life. He's a strong advocate for social justice and often uses his platform to shed light on important disability issues such as a lack of accessibility, ableism, and discrimination. Zachary was born with cerebral palsy and uses a powered wheelchair for mobility. Despite doctors telling his parents that he would never walk, talk, or be able to care for himself, Zachary has defied many expectations. Welcome to the studio, Zachary. I'm so pleased to have you here. Can you share a little bit about how you started at such a young age in this area, please?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thank you, Jenny, for allowing me to join your podcast. And in terms of how I got involved with advocacy, it was a weird situation because I never really wanted to be an advocate per se. Growing up, I didn't want to be around people with disabilities, and I wanted to be normal, right? So out of all that, I actually wanted to be a funeral director. So I went to funeral school, and then my grandma, who I was very close with, got sick. I pulled out of the program to spend her remaining days together while we could, and then I stayed. I wanted to stay in the industry, but unfortunately, I think at that time, the funeral industry wasn't really ready for a person with a disability. And so, what ended up happening is I actually started to volunteer with a nonprofit by the name of Employabilities. And then, someone noticed my work ethic and my potential and really gave me a chance to showcase my skill. And I guess the rest of it is sort of history because I started to see, oh, well, it's not just me that's facing these issues. So, yeah, from there, it just sort of everything lined up.
Amazing. Wow, that's so interesting how, these small decisions we make, but obviously being somebody who cares deeply enough with your relatives to spend time with them in their late stage really reflects on why you might be chosen to help lead in this space. So thank you so much, Zachary, for being a thoughtful individual. I was saying to you offline, I want to tie your work with my work. And I think something that rings true with me with the disability community is I often have had opinions that are differing from the general population. And I would say because of that, I often feel blame for having those differences of opinions, even when they're rooted in evidence and knowledge and all of these things. So I feel like that's where I think, in a way, I can relate to being blamed rather than supported and lifted. I was saying I really like the expression of rising tide raises all boats. The importance of investing in people and investing in prevention can really save us deeply in the long run. Does that resonate with you, Zach?
Yeah, no, 100%. It really is a community that needs to come together no matter what our opinions are. It's okay to, have different opinions, but at some point in the journey, you need to come together for a common cause. And I think the recent Accessibility Act that was struck down by the UCP is a good example of that.
Yes. So please, let's get into that for folks. So I know that MLA Marie Renaud, who's actually from my hometown of St. Albert, she brought forward that bill for you. Can you please first start by explaining what did that bill seek to accomplish? How was it formed, etc.? Thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, first and foremost, it wasn't just a bill for me. Obviously, it was a bill for our community and, something that is very much needed because 1 in 4 individuals live with a disability in Canada and 1 in 5 in Alberta. So that's just over 20%. Well, I guess it is 20%, but really it came out of the fact that that is a very large population of Albertans that are not getting the same and equitable access as, say, someone who does not have a disability. We are one of 2 provinces that do not have accessibility legislation, the other being PEI. Now, if you ask the UCP, they would say that is not correct, but I guarantee you it is correct. Even, I mean, I love Saskatchewan. My father in law was from Saskatchewan, but even Saskatchewan has accessibility legislation. So, nonetheless, that is the driver behind it is, with your MLA being Marie Renault, you probably know that she spent the early days of her career before she was a politician as the executive director for LOSICA, which was an organization that helped or assisted those with intellectual disabilities, which is often a voice that is not at the table or is not listened to. So,
Yeah, I didn't know that actually, because I just to be clear, I no longer live in St. Albert. I'm in Calgary now, but I grew up there, so I have
okay, good.
a bit of a tie to it. And yes, I saw also that there's a recall against her, and I can't imagine that that was a coincidence to be happening at the same time. Can you explain a little bit about what went into it? Like the intention was to make sure that the disability community was making or in a committee. Is that one of the asks of it? Is that right?
Yeah, so that's definitely right. And I think maybe I'll just paint a picture for folks that may not be as up on this as say I would be. The Accessibility Act that Marie worked on alongside people with disabilities of many different sectors, whether it was lawyers or, advocates, nonprofit organizations, even the chambers of commerce. We tried our best to incorporate a lot of different voices in drafting this bill, and essentially it would cover every aspect of life that Albertans face, whether that's, employment, housing, the justice system, basic accessibility into buildings from a physical standpoint, which a lot of everyday Albertans tend to think of, but accessibility goes much more broadly than that nowadays. For example, it would also cover the digital realm with making sure that accessibility is embedded at the foundation of websites and apps so that people with low vision are able to read websites and even down to documentation from the government. If you're blind and you're getting a letter mailed out to you, well, that doesn't really scream access to me. So the bill is well thought out, I thought, in terms of trying to cover as many different pillars, transportation as well, to make sure that it was robust enough to really move the needle on making sure that all Albertans have basic rights to these different things, including visiting your doctor, which is a real shortage right now. So
Wow. Thank you so much, Zach. That was an incredible summary of it. So I think I want to start by highlighting a concept that was mentioned in the chat of that conversation you just held with Ryan Jesperson on Real Talk, which was everybody is temporarily able-bodied. I think that's so
yes,
important to think of this, because even though it's a quarter of us, it could be some of us coming in and out of that system at various times. So to think about how far reaching this issue is really important. The fact that Alberta doesn't have this, it's the only of 2 provinces left that have not adopted this is pretty shocking. And that it's to touch every aspect of life. I think this is just so interesting about if we just slow down and look at ensuring that everybody has access to basic needs. That's something that can translate for everybody in every aspect as well. Just this basic knowledge of what we all need to live our lives and have full opportunities. So thank you for, and even touching in the digital realm, it's just remarkable. So you've alluded to it. Let's expand on. So what did the UCP do with it? What did our Alberta government say to it?
so after I would say 2 years of me working alongside Marie, which again that was one of the greatest honors of my life to sort of be brought into the fold on this, try and bring as many voices into it that are not heard. They struck it down and essentially had problems with the definition of disability. We were very intentional in making sure that we are using a internationally recognized definition of disability. So I'm not sure how much more we could do on that front. The other thing that they laid claim to have an issue with was the fact that it was essentially going to be a committee of people with lived experience, people with disabilities, having too much overreach making things accessible for all Albertans. Now, this legislation obviously is just the tip of the iceberg. It's something to get us, get something going. It doesn't have to be perfect, but at least let's get a horse in the race here, right? So, a lot of what they were saying, we didn't consult the business community. Well, that's not true. We had the support of the Chamber of Commerce, Alberta Chamber of Commerce behind us. We talked with lawyers, we talked with business, we talked with nonprofits, we talked with people with lived experience, indigenous folks. Like, we did our homework on this because we knew that the UCP is very hard to pass a private member's bill. And when you have the current political landscape that we do right now in Alberta, it would be very even more difficult. So those were some of some of the key areas that I thought were kind of like, man, are you kidding me? Like, that's what you
Yeah,
come up with. Like, I'm all for a good debate, right? Like, that's how great legislation is for,
for
right?
sure.
Like, let's talk it out. And uh, that was the other thing, is that they said that we need we didn't really consult. Well, how can we consult with you when you don't want to work with anyone, right?
Right.
So,
Especially the overreach part. That is just shocking to say,
well,
to try
it's
and
ironic.
it's the irony. Yes, it's something that they are very, very adamant about in their own space, but yet exerted over the disability community, the minority community, the municipalities. There's many ways that they do overreach themselves. So yeah.
Mhm.
Can you elaborate a bit? Because let's so there's one example of a place that they could not compromise or discuss or help support a community directly. Can you get into a little bit the AISH versus ADAP scenario? So and actually, can you expand on those acronyms, what they stand for again, if you don't mind, too?
Yeah, yeah. So AISH is our income support program for people with disabilities. It is the assured income for the severely handicapped.
There we go.
And then ADAP is the Alberta Disability Assistance Program. And so AISH has been around since, you know, God was born, in terms of being there to support those that have disabilities that aren't able to work. ADAP is a new program that was just announced, and it essentially is going to be a bit of a transition, not a bit of a transition. It'll be a huge transition because everything I'm reading and hearing based off of the information that are publicly available, which is not very much, and part of the work that I've been advocating for, but at the very crux of it, they're going to be moving over thousands of Albertans to this new ADAP program to help them find employment, because they think that they have this notion that they're painting of two everyday Albertans, that people with disabilities just suck off the system, and they're able to work, and all this rhetoric, when in reality, I guess what I'll start with is, yes, there's always going to be, faults in the program, in the system, but you deal with those individually. You don't paint the whole picture a certain color just because you can. And so they're moving people over from H to ADAP, which, if anyone knows how hard it is to get on AISH. It's not an easy process. They make it sound like it's this really easy thing to do when it's not. They're moving people over under the assumption that these folks with disabilities have the ability to work. They just either don't want to, or like I said, they're sucking out the system. But they're on that program for a reason, and that's because they are not able to work. I think every person with a disability that I've met wants to work. Nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, gee whiz, I want to live on below income or below poverty level income, and that's the life I want to live. Sign me up.
Right. No kidding. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So the big issues with that program is that they're going to be dropping the income from 1940, which is the age amount, to 1740 off the hop. Now, we've been very diligent in trying to get that changed. So far, we've seen a little bit of what is going to be a transition now, instead of just playing hot potato with people's lives. So there is going to be a $200 grace pop up for about a year, and then everyone will be living on 1740. And in that year, you can find yourself a job, right? Because it's so easy to find a job for able-bodied people right now, and I'm sure it's even easier for people with complex needs, which is part of what the accessibility bill would have addressed. Is, yes, we all want everybody to be contributing to the best of their ability, but in order to do that, you have to have the basic foundation of accessibility in place. I mean, people in wheelchairs, how are they going to get to work if they can't even get in the building?
Right. The irony of that is so rich because, yeah, you're right.
Mhm.
I mean, you need this if you want to. And like you said, people want to work, they want to contribute, people want to have meaning in their lives. So the fact
Mhm.
that if you want them to be working, then show them a way that that's possible. Wow.
Absolutely. I think, there needs to be education for prospective employers. There's a general hesitation out there that people with disabilities are risky to hire. I wouldn't say is the right verb there, but I would say can involve more thinking, more problem solving, but creating a program that focuses on how to write resumes, do job interviews. We're putting the cart before the horse, as my mom says. You learn to walk before you run. But the other thing with this ADAP program is that the amount of allowable income that you can make before they start deducting money from you is lower than what ACE actually was originally. Originally, you could earn around $1,100. With the new ADAP program, it's now $700. But prior to that, when it originally rolled out, it was, I think, 300 or $350. I mean, so why not just all of this was actually already in ACE. All they had to do was improve upon. Why waste a bunch of millions, so many millions of dollars creating a new program when the wheel's already built? Just add more spokes.
Well, and again, it's this question of trying to separate our federal connections from us, I guess. Is that true that I guess AISH was always an Alberta program? Does ADAP change any of that access from a federal perspective, or is it? I'm sorry, that might be too much. But
Yeah, no, I from a federal aspect, uh, there isn't really any
okay,
involvement. That
I'll leave.
said, the UCP did claw back the $200 Canada disability benefit, which was meant to raise people out of poverty, but
Right.
they're like, "Oh, thank you. We'll take this," because they believe that the federal government hasn't been throwing their weight enough behind them. So let's balance our budget on the backs of people with disabilities that can't fight a fair fight, right? So
Yeah. Well, and again, it goes back to my analogy about taking the blame for something. Like you said, if somebody couldn't work, they want to be working. So to assume that they're not working because they're draining the system is slapping everybody with as an assumption that really is only an individual issue. It's an individual by individual type question. So yeah, it's just so disheartening to hear how people that are most vulnerable are being attacked by this government. So thank you for sharing all of that. Anything more you want to say about ACE or ADAP before we move forward?
no, I think I would just circle back to like your point around the fact that we're all temporarily able-bodied and
Yeah.
like and that's why it's such an important issue for everyday Albertans to get behind because it's not a matter of if you become disabled, it's likely when you get disabled. When you're a senior, as you said, and I'm a very strong support or advocate for seniors as well. We treat our seniors absolutely disgusting, in my opinion, alongside, what's happening with people with disabilities. The immigrants are now being targeted in Alberta. Like, yeah, we all need to band together and really have each other's back and focus on the reality of things because what's being shared is twisted truth.
Are you able to speak to about who might be informing the government? You know, because you were saying offline you're quite tapped into the disability community, for example. So, do you have any sense of where they are getting their direction from?
Yeah, I mean that's the $1 million question, and again, not to, come out the wrong way, but I've dedicated my life to making sure that the voiceless have a voice, and I am very involved in the disability community. It's a very tight-knit community because we have to be for these reasons. And so everyone I've talked to, nobody knows who's involved in these mysterious consultations. If the consultations that the Alberta government and Minister Nixon is referring to are the, you know, town halls that they held. I think there was like two of them, one over the phone and one online, which ironically were not fully inclusive of everyone because there was no captioning and
Oh my God.
so yeah. Then yeah, okay, I guess that's your level of consultation, but mine and everyone that was involved in the work behind the scenes on this bill is eons above that. So the short answer is we don't know who they're consulting, and if they are consulting with them, is it meaningful, or are they just being tokenized as per what we're used to in this community for a photo op and a check mark, on a piece of paper? Because yeah, I don't think what they're putting down is not what's being put out. in terms of what people with disabilities want their province to be known for.
Hmm.
It's like it's a race to the bottom in terms of how quick we can change people's life for the worse.
No kidding. Yeah, I think, and we won't go down a whole thing here, but the early access for aids for students, the PUF funding that has been stripped from kids, this is a major, major setback for that can be long, that can be permanent for
Mm-hmm.
children, which is just so heartbreaking to think about. Like you said, this is a race to the bottom. Like we're trying to make things worse for our kids and for our future selves. One more hot button let's touch is
Sure,
around
let's do it.
the conversation around MAID. So what I've heard or the rhetoric I've seen is, oh, well, this is the federal government trying to just deal with, I don't know how to say this better, disability community. This is their way of not really supporting them or something like this. That's one of the pieces I've heard. Or maybe I'll leave this to you. Can you tell me what you've heard about it and what you think is important for people to understand around MAID?
First and foremost, I'll say that this is a very personal choice people have to make. And I'm sure anyone going through this process, I just had a friend that used MAID. I know that he did not take that decision lightly, but in terms of the legislation, I've always been, all about autonomy and letting people choose the way they want to live their life to the best of their ability. Now, that doesn't mean that we, should not have stronger safeguards in place. But the way I see it, for example, it's a double-edged sword. It's very personal. For example, with everything going on with ADAP and everything, and reduction in income and the supports being eliminated, and like we just said, the race to the bottom. There's people that now can't even end the suffering. What I'll say is that MAID is there for a reason. It's there to, I believe, help people with chronic, immense pain that, they've exhausted all routes or it's an inevitable outcome. People with cancer or nothing's going to change no matter what. But as you know, I'm a very glass half full person, right? So made made is a tricky one for a lot of people, and I think when you're disability advocates, it becomes even more tricky to navigate what I view as a quality of life versus someone that I have no clue what they're going through. But who am I to say, no, now that you've been reduced to $1,740 per month and you can't find a job, now you can't pay your rent because we're making the providers like Savita and everything like that increase the rent as well. Like you're forcing people onto the streets, which are very dangerous, needless to say. So it's a tough pill to swallow. And I think it's important that we have safeguards in place that allow people that if they're having a bad day or a bad week or a bad month, don't preemptively end their life. But at the same time, if those months are turning into years, right, and there's no improvement and you've exhausted all routes, then, it's there for a reason. I know that talking with specialists in the field around neurology and all that, it is a very stringent process, right down to the very visit that you receive that treatment. You have to coherently tell them, yes, you're here to XYZ. It's a very hot button issue. So hopefully I've spoken eloquently around the balance of life and what that means for people of all abilities.
Thank you. Yeah, there's, like you said, there's just so many aspects to consider because you're right. If we don't have the support in the system for people, again, we can't blame them for that problem.
Mhm.
This is part of the challenge. And then the stronger safeguards, like we just to be squeezing people from both sides of the coin there with increased rent and decreased money because you're trying to work and now you've made too much money and now you're not accept, like you can't get this benefit. None of that sounds like it's real. That's not possible to achieve, and this is setting people up for failure in that. Did you have something else to add?
No, I totally agree. I think it's like watching a horror movie in slow motion. Like you said, well, it's squeezing people from both sides, and all I can say is that I will not give up in terms of making sure that we do not have to resort to things as much as things are in our control, that we do not resort to not being around, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's heartbreaking, and I will not stop until Alberta has accessibility legislation. I'm not gonna say that it's perfect because nothing ever is, but it will be well thought out and it will be infused with the fabric of those impacted across every intersectionality of life. So
Beautiful. Listening to you here, Zach, if there's a way that my organization can sign on to your memo, I think that's something maybe we could get people to do. I think we need to be creative, like you said, go across different groups and make sure that we're checking all those boxes in our favor as well. How do people reach you? Let's start there. And how can we be creative in your view? What comes next?
people can reach me online, obviously. Websites are the cool thing nowadays, so they can reach me at zacharyweeks.ca, or they can find me on social media. I like to keep things simple. I'm a simple, easygoing guy. So at Zachary Weeks for Instagram, and then Facebook is the Zachary Weeks. I'll pop up either way. Nonetheless, I think you nailed it. I think we all need to come together out of worrying whose ethnicity is what faith we believe in, what our sexual preferences or orientation is, or anything like that. We need to come together as Albertans, as Canadians, as humans, and support each other when we're dealing with a time like this. And I think making introductions and sharing knowledge is the easiest, most effective way I've found to make an impact in Alberta. So, if you know the leader of, a church, or the leader of the LGBT community that is a mover and shaker and aligns with what we've been chatting about, Jenny, then I think we're Indigenous folks. Like, that's the other thing. Disabilities is not discriminate, right? Like, not only does it not care about your ability or your economic standing, it doesn't care about anything I just described, whether you're white, black, indigenous, gay, straight, you know, the list goes on. What I focus on in my work is, are you human and do you bleed red? That's it.
Beautiful. Wow, Zachary, you are quite the spokesperson. I am so grateful for this opportunity to speak with you. I'm happy to touch base with you again whenever it's meaningful for you. Let's work together and make sure that your cause is my cause and vice versa. We got, like you said, these are
Absolutely.
unique times. We really got to stretch ourselves and understand how these all connect to the same thing, which is us not being looked after as a whole.
Absolutely. And I think, I can't be more grateful to be on your platform, Jenny. And yeah, I respect you for what you do, and you have my support as well. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We'll take care for now.
You as well.